A follower called Suresh made a great point the other day. The cost of living going down in China is something I have difficulty understanding, he said. I checked hotels and tour packages and was very surprised that you could book a room at high-end hotels for $75 a night, and tour packages cost much less than in Europe. Generally, with incomes rising, the cost of living goes up. Maybe, Jerry, you can explain this dichotomy. Thanks. What a great topic for a tabletop talk. There isn't much to explain except that China is a socialist country or socialist society, although there are some business leaders who demand top profits. Most of them are happy with returns on their income and getting enough money to pay for all the nice things that they like in life and some savings. The real serious billionaires all put money back into society, and most serious manufacturers will reinvest a large part of their revenue into new equipment to make production cheaper, faster, or better. Or they'll invest in R&D to make products that are increasingly better, cheaper, and made in higher quantities at faster speeds. And that's how many Chinese factories work, at least most of the factories that I've been in. The government here controls all the banking, so there's no massive rip-offs there. It controls most education except for a few international schools, which are more expensive. It controls all health, except again for a few international hospitals, which are much more expensive and quite frankly, not much better, except that they will have less crowds and more privacy. The government works hard to keep pharmaceutical prices down. Unlike the US, China controls most of the logistics and keeps a lid on inflation by managing the interest rates as well as the costs of many things, including staples such as rice, pork, etc. There most definitely is inflation, but the inflation here is lower than the increases in income. Since I've been here, inflation has been lower than the UK, and I receive a pension from there which goes up by at least double the cost of inflation in China. So effectively, I'm one of the few people who receives a British pension that's worth more every year. That I get it anyway. Surprisingly, this creates a different problem in that hundreds of billions, if not trillions, are saved by Chinese people. Consumption is up, but Western economists would like it to be up more. There are mass productions of almost everything that China wants, so there's no price squeeze because of low availability. If you want to buy a car, there's no waiting list, so there's no way to jump the waiting list by adding to the price you're prepared to pay and thereby contributing to inflation. Cost increases. I think the difference between a socialist economy with Chinese, or I should say some capitalistic characteristics, and a capitalist market economy is the control that China exerts to ensure that the vast majority of people, rather than the few elites, benefit the most from growth. There are very few ways for rich people to avoid paying taxes. The more you earn, the more your tax rate is. It's as simple as that. Taxes are well used to provide services and infrastructure that are improving on a regular basis, and almost every person in China has access to savings. If you don't have a few 100,000 in your savings account here, then there's something wrong with you. It's as simple as that. So, I've been reading a guy called Jayant Bhandari, and he makes a great, although not entirely correct statement that China has what he considered the most capitalist economy on the planet, despite the communist label. It operates with astonishing efficiency. Transaction costs are minimal, making goods and services cheaper and ever higher quality. And there's the big thing that he gets right. Transaction costs are minimal. We don't need lawyers to buy a house. I've bought 3 apartments over the years and never hired a lawyer. We don't need lawyers to write a will. As long as you follow procedure, your will be valid. My total banking fees for all of my banking are 3 RMB a month. That's about 50 cents, because I pay that fee to have text messages sent to my phone when there's a transaction. Utilities here are cost effective. My water bill for a 2-month period just the other day was 38 RMB. That's $7 for 2 months. There are no property taxes in China, only some maintenance fees. If you have an elevator, a manicured garden, a swimming pool, you contribute towards the upkeep of them. But if you don't, You don't pay additional taxes for your rubbish collection, the street cleaning, the schools and the hospitals. They're all paid for by central taxes. I made the comment a few days ago that costs go down, and that's because cost savings are passed on. This is evident by the fact that it currently costs me about half the price it used to cost to go to another city by car. When I came to China 20 years ago, it was 400 RMB to get a car from Guangzhou to Zhongshan. Now it's about 200 or even less. How did that happen? Because electric vehicles are much cheaper to run. The driver's still getting a fair income. The car owner, whether it be the driver or a hired vehicle, for the purpose of getting an income and profit, is still being made. Now, this is vastly different from corporations like Apple and Tesla, which force down costs, make massive savings, and then push up prices to increase profitability. The benefits go to the corporation's leaders and the shareholders. But we all know ordinary people don't have shares in these companies. They can't afford it. Now, I'm sure that there are examples of price gouging in China, but it's an offense and properly managed. When we had COVID here, masks never went up in price because they were essential. And the one company I heard of that did put the price up was fined heavily. One hotel that I heard of that charged people from Hubei province more to stay there because Wuhan is in that province was actually closed down by the local government. That's how they keep prices down. All in all, it's a great place to live for many reasons. Safety and security are big reasons, but so is affordability. I prefer to have savings passed down to me than passed across to the elites. Wouldn't you? Unless, of course, you're one of the elites. This makes perfect sense. That's how costs are managed in China. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.